Hello and welcome to this episode of the Barracuda Build Diary. In this episode I'll be explaining the iterative process of designing the wheels for Barracuda and fitting the motor mounts on the robot. The wheel design of this robot started out as Gunblade 2 style wheels but thinner, about 6mm HDPE thick, with rubber tyres around the outside that was slightly thicker than the HDPE thickness. I'll cover this more in depth later. Towards the end of the video I'll be going on to the brushless motor mount on the robot and the arrival of the Hardox parts. In the next part here I'll be taking you on to the pictures and a more detailed explanation of the build. So this is where we left off last episode, where most of the HDPE part of the chassis is complete. So now I go on to explain where I put the motor mounts on the robot and the materials used. The motor mounts I've used here are plastic motor mounts, which I've got from Roboteernat, who has his own YouTube channel and is also a fellow UK robot builder. Now you can see in this picture here the screws for the motor mounts on the base plate of the robot. 4 on the far left and 4 on the far right in a rectangular pattern. This one was taken a bit further back in the build, and you can see clearly here the brushed motors and the motor mounts in this picture. These are actually the same gearboxes I use in Gunblade, so the wheels are actually compatible. And here we have a close-up of the gearbox side of the motor mount here. Unfortunately it's a little bit blurry, but you can see how it's laid out. This is a standard 18V drill motor setup. You can actually see in a lot of featherweight robots. So going back to the compatibility of the Gunblade's wheels, this is actually Gunblade 1's wheels with a new set of wheel hubs attached to Barracuda. This was very useful because it meant I can actually progress quite rapidly to drive testing early on in the process. And you can also see in these pictures I've actually connected up with the battery and the LEDs and things like that. You can see in this one, this is an interior view of one of the sides with the motors actually soldered up to one of Cosmin's ESCs, which is a new brushed ESC. And now we move on to the wheels I'll use on the actual Barracuda design. So this is being cut out of a panel of 6mm HDPE, and instead of having a continuous rubber tyre around the wheel, this robot actually has rubber feet. This is actually inspired by the design of Wombo's wheels as seen in Norwalk Havoc in 2021. Wombo is a US beetleweight robot. Not only is this design actually saving weight, it also may even offer better grip than continuous rubber wheels, although there's no real way of actually proving this at the moment. So here we have the first iteration of Barracuda's actual wheels, both of which are done now. I gave these some roll tests on the floor to make sure they weren't getting stuck on any of the screws. So this moves us nicely onto the weapon motor mount. In order to secure the aluminium pieces properly when I'm drilling them, I actually bought a proper drill press vise. This proved very useful in actually keeping the aluminium piece steady while I drilled it. As you can see here, the piece is nicely clamped in, and I've used a marker pen to pinpoint where I want to drill the holes. The central hole was quite tricky because it actually had to be greater than 10mm. And not only that, I had to do a fair amount of work countersinking the inner edge of the big hole so that it didn't clash with the circlip on the brushless motor. And then we have 4 countersunk M4 holes for the screws and 4 countersunk M5 holes on the outside to attach it to the chassis. I was actually pretty pleased with how this turned out because it was actually a lot cleaner looking than Gunblade's first mount. So definitely some progress made there. Here you can see the scale of the brushless motor and the motor mount compared to the brush motors on the robot. The brushless motor mount will go roughly in the centre of the robot, attached to one of the HDP inner panels. So, as said at the start of this video, this is the arrival of the Hardox parts. The largest part is the 10mm thick Hardox bar, and then we have 4mm Hardox weapon bar mounts. One for each side and spares. So that about wraps up this episode. In the next video I'll be taking you through the actual design of the weapon assembly and build of it. And that includes the Hardox weapon bar, the weapon shaft and the weapon shaft mounts, which are also made from Hardox. So I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.